The Belize Electricity Limited is expanding its reliance on renewable energy. A least cost expansion study recently completed reveals the potential for investment in solar, winds, and battery-powered energy that could see renewable energy sources increase from 55% of local supply to 70% in the short term. A least cost expansion study seeks to determine the most economical generation expansion.
We're focusing on renewable energy resources and self-sufficiency. Simply meaning that we're looking at utility scale solar. The expansion study is suggesting that we can get anywhere between 45 and 60 megawatts of solar on our network. To put that in perspective, our entire grid needs right now is about 110 megawatts. The study is saying we can have as much as 45 to 60 megawatts additional of solar on the network. It also speaks of wind technology that we're able to experiment based on the studies that have shown the potential for wind in certain areas of the country. It also calls for battery systems where we will install 10 or 20 megawatt size battery technology systems for immediate response when we have issues on the network, and also for solar intermittency.
Self-sufficiency would mean that the national grid will be less vulnerable to external shocks and nationwide blackouts, like what occurred on Friday when B.E.L lost supply from Mexican supplier C.F.E.
What is important to understand is for a stable grid, the energy demand must match the energy supplied. And when we lost the Mexican connection, the system responded as it should by shedding demand to match the supply available in country. We had areas in Cayo, Stan Creek, and Toledo, which remained with power from our local supply. We did, however, later on suffer a total power outage to the entire country as our local IPPs were unable to support the demand of these areas that remained online. Typically, we aim for about an hour and a half restoration time. However, this process did take 2.5 hours for most areas, but the system was restored before we reconnected to C.F.E.
New legislation will see the creation of a distributed generation system whereby households will be able to sell power back to the national grid.
The way how we are proposing to roll out distributed generation, first of all, we've submitted to the PUC draft legislations to allow for distributed generation, solar PV. That is both the interconnection standards to ensure that these systems are installed properly and interconnected to a network safely, and also two tariffs, the tariffs for distributed generation and a feed-in tariff that allows B.E.L to be able to purchase excess power from these producers, the independent producers' households, because they will have solar systems on their roof that may have excess energy produced that they want to feed back into the B.E.L grid. We want to be able to compensate customers for that, for the energy they export back to the grid. But we're also contemplating providing.
Fuller says these upgrades will serve to stabilize the cost of electricity in Belize and will come at no increased cost to customers.
This is the plan that we have, and it's immediate. We don't want to wait any longer, and so we're hoping that once this study is finalized and we're in the final leg of getting this study completed and published, we will share it with the regulator, and the regulator will then be able to be in a very good position based on this study to determine what RFPs will go out immediately for the new renewable energy resources that we need to implement on the grid. This is not a medium or long-term direction that we want. It's immediate. Whatever the study says that we need to put in now, we want to put in now, because we're at a point where our network is growing, our demand is growing, and we want to be less reliant on the C.F.E supply and have the internal, the in-country sources available to us to be as self-sufficient as we can.
Reporting for News 5, I am Paul Lopez.